Hello everyone, I'm Brian. Welcome back. Let's go ahead and continue.
My next question to you, Sadhguru, is um, when something bad happens to somebody, and we know that it's always on their conscience, they're thinking about it a lot of times, but eventually there comes a point where they are ready to let it go. But somewhere there's a guilt that if they let this thing go, like something that's troubled them for so many years. There's this guilt where they don't want to let the past go because they feel guilty of letting it go. So why does that happen, and how do we let go of that guilt? Like, even if we take, for instance, sexual abuse, if a girl is sexually abused and eventually if she reaches a point where she is ready to overcome it, but she feels guilty to let it go because it has troubled her for a very, very long time. And not just her, the ones around her as well. So is it right to let it go at that point, or like how does one deal with a situation like this?
Ooh, that's a toughie. But I'll say letting it go would be more along the lines of kind of like it's a bit confusing. It's like, why would someone who was a victim of it or had nothing to do with it have an issue with letting it go? I think more along the lines, if someone caused an issue and they feel guilty because of it, that's where the issue of letting go comes from. So for example, if you, I don't know, you did something or told someone something and something bad happened to them, something pretty bad, like they were paralyzed, or you know, their car that they just bought was completely wrecked or something, and now they have to buy a new one, and they need it because they need to get around for work or whatever. I mean, a new car is new to them. They could have bought it used, but they spent all their money to get it, you know, hoping that they use that to get around, to get a job, to go to and from jobs. And then all of a sudden, whatever you told them, whatever you did, caused them to get in a wreck, and their car is now gone. Like, that kind of guilt. It's like, you are the cause of it, and how do you let go of that? It's like, yeah, that's kind of tough because, you know, you caused a very bad accident. Now, your friend could forgive you, but for you yourself, it's going to be very difficult to kind of forgive because, you know, maybe you know your friend to be too nice, or maybe your friend doesn't let it go, where he you know, he's angry at you, and now you feel guilty, you know. But for you to let go of, it's not a guilt though. It's for you to be a victim. You're not guilty of anything. But yes, I think it's a little bit easier to let go of certain things that happen to you in some sense, as in you cannot let it eat you alive because you're not the cause of it. I think it's a lot easier to let go of something that you are not the cause of. Again, for example, if you're the friend that 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 got in a car wreck because of what your friend did to you or whatever, then yeah, you letting that go is a lot easier than someone who's caused the accident. But how do you deal with that situation? I guess my practical solution would be more along the lines of the fact that what has been done is done. There's nothing you can do about the past anymore. We have to look forward to the future. So learn your lesson from whatever happened in the past, whatever that scenario may be, to prevent that from happening to you again. And also maybe to teach other people about situations like that, to give them advice so that it doesn't happen to them. This is the reason why I like learning, and the reason why I enjoy talking for the most part, about like giving helpful information. It's not to say that the information right then and there is going to help you immediately. It's hopefully something that is related to whatever issue or whatever you're doing that may come in handy sometime. It's not going. It may not be immediately. It may. Hopefully, it's never. Hopefully, every information that's ever given to you will never ever come into the situation that you're in. Well, actually, I don't know. That might be a bad thing, because then every experience that you have is things that you've never experienced before. But, you know, obviously you want to be able to be prepped to deal with bad situations. So this is the reason why you always kind of listen to people and take what they say into account, but don't believe in it. Just listen, and maybe it does have some impact of whatever situation that you're in.
See, I think the struggle is coming from a misunderstanding that something either unpleasant or terrible that one may encounter in one's life, it can just happen to anybody in so many different ways. If it happens, people think they must forget it. No, you should never forget it. If something terrible happens to you, you should never ever forget it, because if you forget it, you may walk into it again.
Exactly. Learn from it. It's not about forgetting, it's about not letting it eat you alive. Remember the things that has been done to you, but don't let those things eat you alive. Oh, I don't know a better phrase to say that. Don't let it build up anger or resentment. And just use that as a learning experience to teach yourself and hopefully other people to avoid situations like that.
But we must know the distinction between what is memory and what is living. You are living. Memory is a dead memory, you're supposed to use it as wisdom to see such things don't happen to you in your life. But it's a fact that for most people, what happened 10 years ago, they still suffer. What may happen day after tomorrow, they already suffer. Yes or no? What happened 10 years ago or even 10 days ago does not exist right now, does it?
That's a very good way of saying that. It does not exist now. The thing I think about that is like, if I were to explain that to someone, it's like, I wonder if someone would get offended. It's like, just because it doesn't exist right now doesn't mean it didn't happen. So I have to try to think of ways of counteracting that by saying, no, the point is that it has already happened. There's nothing you can do right now to undo what has been done in the past. What you can do from now on forward is look at what you can do to prevent that from happening, to stop that from happening again, and to help other people so that it doesn't happen to them. That's how my mind works.
Does it? No. What may happen day after tomorrow does not exist right now, does it? No. So you're suffering essentially something that does not exist. How many of you are psychology students, huh? Is there a medical term for those people who are suffering something that does not exist? No, don't tell them please, they'll suffer that.
I think there is paranoia, but generally that's in a bit of an extreme degree though.
If you are suffering something that does not exist, on some level it means insanity, isn't it? This may sound very cruel to you right now when I say this, because, oh, I got my pains. See, you're carrying your pains like badge, don't do that. When something bad happens to us, when something hurts us, we can either become wise or wounded. This is a choice we have.
Wow.
Either we can become wise with it or we can become wounded with it. As we already went through this, life is just a certain amount of time. It's ticking away. As you sit here now, you are 1 hour closer to the grave since you came here. Yes or no? Yes.
My bad. I keep talking a lot and you guys are like a few hours into the grave. I mean a lot of hours into the grave now. Me too though, me too. We're in this together.
Yes, it is. It's going away for all of us. So in this, where is the time to carry every experience like a wound? No. This must become your wisdom. If terrible things happen to you, you must become wiser than others, sooner than others, isn't it? But unfortunately, most people choose to become wounded simply because, again, in our systems of education, we have done nothing about the nature of human mind. We are busy studying frogs and cockroaches and trees and chemistry and physics and planets and everything. No attention to the nature of this one.
I'll say though, that's a fair assumption, and this is something that I've had issues with in terms of people in the States as well, is that, you know, it's like, oh, the school needs to teach this, the school needs to teach that, the school needs to teach this and that. It's like, are you wanting all the responsibilities to be on the school to teach your kids? Then what is your job as a parent to do? And this is like, the school is not meant to teach you how to live life. It's going to teach you the materialistic world to whatever degree you want it to be. You have to know the basics, your language, math, science, history, and whatever else the basics are, so that you have some knowledge going into the world. And then when you go to college, you specialize into whatever it is that you want to do. But how to live life is not a school's job. How to do your taxes is not a school's job necessarily. I mean, it's something that we all have to do. It's something that we need to be taught how to do, but, you know, how to be well-mannered and behave is not what your school is supposed to do. You're supposed to do that. Your parents are supposed to teach you that. Your culture, your neighbors, your family is supposed to teach all of these. These things are not school's responsibility, and this is the biggest thing I kind of have. It's like, it seems like, generally speaking, in the United States, the people on the left tends to lose responsibility to the family and seems to give it to the government or to just other people. It's really kind of weird. I'm not saying all of them, but I do see that a little bit. But anyways, let's continue.
So we don't know how to use our faculties. The greatest faculties that you have right now as a human being is, you have a vivid sense of memory. Everything that happened, you can remember as if it's alive right now. Yes? There is a repository here, there is an archive in your mind which can replay the whole video if you want. But this has become a problem. You started suffering the old movies. And there is a fantastic sense of imagination, so you already suffer a tomorrow which is yet to come.
Yeah.
This is basically because we have not taught our children and the people in the world how to employ our faculties, how to use our memory, how to use our imagination, how to experience life right now, how to sharpen the experience now. Your whole life is happening between these three dimensions: memory, present experience and imagination. This is your life, isn't it? These are three dimensions.
That's an interesting way to put it. Imagination as the future. I like that. Memory, present, and imagination. I mean, it is so true. Past, future, and past, present, and future. You're living in these three dimensions. The past by your memory, recalling things in the past. The present, what you're doing to yourself now. Or I should say maybe the past, then the future, and then the present. So the past, the things that happened before. The future, things that you don't know is going to happen yet. It's your imagination running wild of anything could happen. In the present, which is suffering from the future and the past, for everything that has already happened that you can't do nothing about, and the potentiality of the future. You're suffering everything from those two dimensions to the present, which needs to be stopped.
We call them trikala. Three dimensions of time. All your experience of life is happening here. But if you lose distinction between what is past, what is present, what is future, then everything hurts. For not everybody, terrible things have happened. Unfortunately, for a few people, they have happened. But the rest of the people are simply suffering something, isn't it? Because it's fashionable to suffer.
Sorry. When Sadhguru said that, it just made me think of the thing that I'm seeing. It's called the Victim Olympics or something, or the victim points. Just who can accumulate the most victim points as possible. It's really crazy, and I forgot to check when this came out, because it's true. Right now, if suffering is fashionable, absolutely. It's happening in the United States. It's just who can accumulate the most victim points. It's really kind of strange. Again, I talk about because of those three comforts or those three things, essentials are gone. Now we're trying to figure out a ways to suffer more because there's no suffering in a sense.
Just people think if they're suffering, they are very intellectual, they are very profound. No, it's just stupid because you're suffering something that doesn't exist. You are not suffering what's happening right now. You're suffering what happened yesterday, and you're suffering something that may happen tomorrow already. So this madness has been encouraged simply because we never train people how to use their faculties. Do you agree with me that this human machine that you carry and I carry, this is the most sophisticated machine on the planet? Hello? Have you read the…
A quick question. I noticed the way they answered that. Is that typical? Is that like a regional part? Hey, let's rewind it so you can see the women at the ends, not the middle one. How they answered that question. I'm just curious. I've seen that. I thought it was kind of always funny because I've never seen that before, but it's also unique as well. I don't know if there's any other culture or maybe people in the world that answers a yes like that.
Created machine on the planet. Hello?
So I don't know how to do that. But is that something in a particular region of India, or is it all of India, or like I'm kind of curious as where did that head shake comes from? And I'm assuming that's a yes. But it's really weird how it's like a shake like this almost. But I think I'm wondering if it's a very specific. I'm sorry. That's the first time I think I've seen that in the video, and I remember that being like a stereotypical thing in India. I just don't know if it's all of India or just particular parts. It's just pretty cool. It's very interesting. I'm just wondering where it came from, really. Sorry.
Have you read the user's manual? User's manual. Have you read? No. When are you going to read it? On the last day? If you get a phone, if you buy a phone, should you read the user's manual in the first 3 days or after 3 years when you're discarding the phone? Earliest, isn't it? Within the first day you must read, then only you can use this phone well. The same goes for this. If you do not understand the nature of what this is, how will you put this to use? It is consuming you, your own intelligence is consuming you. You can call it stress, anxiety, pain, suffering, whatever. Essentially, your intelligence is turned against you, that's all the reality is. If your intelligence was working for you, taking instructions from you, you would keep yourself blissed out, wouldn't you? Hello? Your intelligence is turned against you. Why has your intelligence turned against you? That's what you need to look at, not about carrying these stupid things that have happened which should not have happened as badges in our life. This may get a lot of women against me. If I was against you, I wouldn't be here. Yes.
My next question to you, Sadhguru. How does one decide whether one should or should not have premarital sex? And does it prepare us for a better marital life?
Now I'm trying to remember how many sex questions they've asked in terms of relationship as well. Let me ask that one. I know she asked the question of what do you call it? Multiple men or multiple women being married to one. I can't wait for her next question to see what it is. Okay, so I guess let me give the statistics that I hear and from the red pill community in America, typically. They say, generally speaking, premarital sex doesn't benefit you for long-term relationship. I don't know if this is true or not. I've heard it. It seems like it might be true. Women who have the more partners women have, the less likely they'll be happy in the marriage. But apparently, they say it doesn't affect men. Now, you can look that up by all means. Like anything I say, look up. Don't trust me. I can see that though, but it's not to say that all women are like this. But there seems to be kind of a pattern, I suppose. I don't know what percentages. So, premarital sex. What was the question? It's like whether one should or should not have. I mean, you're an adult. You have to be able to make decisions for yourself. Listen to your parents. I don't know what they'll say. Generally speaking, I suppose if you want to be as happy as possible, maybe finding someone who you genuinely want to be with. A lot of people in the United States suggest that marriage and then sex. My opinion is not necessarily that. Find someone who you genuinely want to be with that genuinely wants to be with you. That's going to take some time though, and that's fine. You don't necessarily have to wait till you're married to have sex. It's just so weird question. But anyways, just it's going to take some time to find someone. You have to know for sure. But at least in American statistics, that it seems like those who wait until they're married to have sex tend to have a higher success in marriage. So take that for what you will. That again, that's just American statistics. So I don't know how it is anywhere else. I'm sure as men, women, we're generally roughly the same all over the world, but there's a cultural impact on how these things are looked at in the culture itself, and can affect the success and failure rate as well. On top of us just being the nature part of us.
See, different people are made differently. This happened. There was a little turtle, baby turtle. With great difficulty, it climbed up a tree, went and sat on the edge of a branch and jumped, fell flat on the ground. Again, it took another 24 hours for it to slowly climb, get to that branch, again jump, again fell flat. Like this, day after day it was doing. Then there were two birds in the opposite tree, they were sitting there, and among themselves they shook their head and said, "I think it's time we tell him he's adopted."
Oh.
For everybody, we are trying to draw the same prescription. This is not going to work. Because I've seen, every day I'm meeting thousands of people, they're poor, their problems on me, all kinds of stuff. What I see is all these people who talked about great amount of freedom, when it comes to their personal lives, after 30, 40 years of marriage, not 2, 3 years, after 30 years of marriage, still what the wife did or the husband did 35 years ago, still point of conflict. Have you seen or no? You have also seen? So when you know this is the state of human mind, you must know what to do and what not to do. It is not a question of morality, it's a question of what kind of life do you want to craft for yourself. It's about that. Is it a morality? Is it that nobody should get into anything or everybody should get into something? There's no such thing. What kind of life are you wanting to craft for yourself? A kind of life where your relationships mean really binding yourself in such a way that truly you can depend on yourself, or it's like visiting restaurants every day, you want to taste something new and see, but you could get very unhealthy with that. There are some people who stick to their home food, though it tastes about the same every day, but those people are generally healthy, isn't it?
Relating, I'm assuming, partners, maybe sexual partners, to food. Tasting different food, not very healthy.
This is not… I'm not trying to teach you a moral class. I'm not a moral class person, but these kind of things are happening in the society. People are trying to draw prescriptions. Everybody must do this, otherwise you're no good, or everybody should not do it, otherwise you're no good. No, that's not the way. There was a time in this culture and in every culture, by the time a girl is 15 or 16, she was married. By the time a boy is 17 or 18, he was married. Now, because of our education systems and professional requirements, and society has changed, everything has changed. Because of that, average marriage age for girls is around 24 in this country right now, and for boys it's crossing 28, 30. The peak of hormonal impact on human life is somewhere between 15 to 30. After that, it's not the same thing. So, this is at least something we must debate. But we should not be hasty to draw a conclusion, this is the way, that is the way. We must give enough awareness to people that they don't get into something compulsively which they regret later. If consciously, if people see that this is the way I want to craft my life, that's up to the individual. But there is no common prescription, there should never be a common prescription.
I'll say also, again, you are able to craft your own life, but you must accept the consequences of that action. I think that's what a lot of when you watch the red pill movement stuff, I mean, a lot of it's very informative, and I think it can help you understand a lot of things in life. I'm not saying everything they say is right. Again, I like to listen to people, take into account, and see if that matches the experience that I have. But then again, you have to take into account a lot of different things, because generally these people that do these talking shows are in like metropolitan areas where you're literally surrounded by a million or more people, so your options are significantly grander and it's a lot easier to meet people. But anyways, there are, what is it? Again, it's a bit of a one-sided thing, but I've hear women who are much older are now saying it's like, where all the good men gone? It's a very famous saying that that older women say, and let me reposition. Older women say, it's like, oh, where all the good men gone? And it's just sheer fact. It seems like they've chosen to kind of live a wild life when they're younger, and now that they're older and they can't attract as many men as they used to, and maybe now they're ready to settle down. They forgot to snag someone on the way to settling down part. It's only after a couple of things hit them that they realize, like, oh, I should have snagged someone. And now they're saying, well, there's no good men, they're all just garbage people. Roughly grouping all men together. But, and this is what I say about living with the consequences of the decision that you make. And that applies to both men and women, obviously, Just an example of one example. And again, men for choosing like bad women or staying with bad women, or choosing a woman who is very attractive but didn't realize all they wanted from them was money, and they're willing to pay for that. And all of a sudden, when they're broke now, there's like, well, you chose the wrong woman. It's your fault for choosing her and for not finding someone genuine. And you apply again, like I said, most of the things I say is always going to apply to both. Just certain things tend to not heavily, but just tends to apply to one a little bit more than the other. It goes both ways.
Because individual requirements are very different.
We have a few questions that were posted on social media and have become very popular. Like they were popularly
Questions
asked.
have become popular?
I mean, a lot of people had asked those questions.
Okay.
That's what I meant. So we have a few here today that we wish to ask you. So the first question, I'll take the first question. This question is from Subhashish Mukherjee, and he says, I want to know the truth of black magic. My non-Bengali friends believe black magic has come into existence from West Bengal. How much truth is there in this?
It's a very Bengali question.
My opinion, does it exist?
The truth they're not asking how much truth in the black magic, they're asking whether it came from West Bengal or not. Well, Kerala people believe it came from Kerala. It's little fishy, both the populations. Lot of fish in them, So, at one time in this country, as you have a family doctor, they used to have a witch doctor. Almost every family had somebody to consult on these kind of aspects, because these arts were so widespread. Did it originate in Bengal? Did it originate in Kerala? No, I think it survived more in Kerala and Bengal today. In other places, it's gotten a little wiped out. Essentially, what you're talking about is occult. Occult is a certain technology that you can use your energies to create certain impact. But unfortunately, it's gotten very negative press because market was for the negative. So people used it more negatively than positively. It could also be used positively. It's like any other technology, you can either use it positively or negatively. Unfortunately, the negative usage became overwhelmingly larger than the positive usage. So people think occult means it's a negative. No, The usage has become unfortunately negative. It could also be used in a positive manner. When I say it could also be used in a positive manner, you can transform life with it. You could… help people out of their health situations, out of their psychological situations, various things could be done. Instead of that, because the market is mainly for the negative, somebody pays you to cause detriment to some other life at the benefit of somebody else's… to somebody else's benefit, to your detriment, somebody else's benefit, it is being done. Because of that, it's gotten a negative image. Occult is like this. See, right now, all of you have a phone. Suppose you had a phone 100 years ago, cell phone 100 years ago, you could claim you have occult powers because you could just take this and speak to somebody in America, everybody woo, they will shiver, okay? Yes or no? So, occult is just technology. You could communicate, you could use your energies to communicate with somebody. But as modern technology becomes more and more subtle, the need for occult is receding quite a bit, because so many things that we used to do in occult today can be delivered. You can send a WhatsApp message, you don't have to sit there focusing to send a message to somebody anymore. It took a lot more energy and time to do that. Now, message goes. So, messaging business has completely fallen out of occult. Otherwise, occult was mainly used to deliver messages to people in a different way. You have heard of telepathy and not telecommunication, telekinetics and various other things where things were done from a distance. But today all those things are being done by regular technology, so occult or the requirement for occult is withdrawing. The need is just going away and probably most of it will go away. There are a few things that one could do, but above all, if we created a society that whatever is given to you, you will use it in a positive way, occult can be a tremendous possibility, as technology can be tremendous possibility. As I mentioned earlier, most of the technology is used for developing arms and armaments and bombs and nuclear bombs and more destructive things. The same thing could have been used for something else. Absolutely, positive things could have been done, but that's not been done because the market is for the negative. Similarly, the same things have happened to occult.
And real quick, and speaking about that situation, real quick about the markets for the negative, it's kind of like the news. You gotta understand, when I see a lot of some comments saying like, the BBC talking negative about India or the West talking negative about India, I mean, I wouldn't doubt that to be true, but at the same time, news just talks about negative in general. I guess it's a little bit weird to talk about other countries, but it happens. We see some things we can see from North Korea. I don't know what else. China. China. But yes, the news itself generally just speaks on negatives only because that's what the market's about. Kind of like what Sadhguru here is talking about, and I've explained this many times before, like, it's nice. The reason why the negative is a bit more profitable in terms of the market, in terms of the news, is because the positives are not going to affect you negatively. If a positive thing happens, that's great. If something negative happens, you want to know if that's going to affect you or not, because it's a negative thing, and a negative thing in your life is not good. So the sad truth of the matter is that news, generally speaking, are always going to talk about the negatives, because that's what draws attention to people, It's sad, but like Sadhguru here is talking about, it's what draws people.
Your Mukherjee friend, well, I think from what I hear, I think Kerala tops in the occult practices even today. Next comes West Bengal. Next, probably some northeastern states have this, but they're very rudimentary occult. Kerala occult is quite sophisticated. You will see a lot of occult in North America, in the North American tribes, but very basic, mainly messaging occult. but now they all have smartphones, so it's all going out. I think Kashmir at one time had a lot of occult. Bengal, Kerala, Northeast, well, some parts of Andhra Pradesh and Orissa, but now market is done.
Next question, sir. What type of food we should eat so that our life reaches its full potential for a college or a school-going student? And it's by Spurti.
Oh. Well, we must understand this. Food is not a religion. Food is not a culture. Food is just the fuel for this machine.
Interesting. You said food's not a culture. I thought it is. I mean, generally speaking, you can only make with what's available around you. So, in a lot of sense, food is a major part of culture. I'd figured. Now, food definitely can. Religious has incorporated food, but yes, food is definitely not a religion. But I believe food is a culture. It's very interesting. You didn't say it's not a. It's not a culture.
Yes? There may be cultural aspects to the taste.
Oh, okay.
There may be even religious tinge
Okay.
to the food over a period of time. But essentially, food is fuel for this body.
Yeah.
So with what kind of food will it function with minimum struggle within itself and maximum impact? So suppose you buy a petrol car and pump diesel into it, it may still roll around but not at its optimum. Similarly, various foods you can eat and still somehow it functions. But those communities which have eaten with care, you can clearly see a distinct difference in the way they function, the levels of intelligence and whatever. So in India, we prescribed food for different people in different way. If you're doing menial jobs, you eat one way because you need physical muscle. If you're doing other kinds of trading and other kinds of activities, you eat another way. If you are a fighting class, you eat differently. And now if you are into education, spiritual process and subtler aspects of life, then you eat differently. Now that you mentioned students, I believe you're in education. Yes? Okay. If you are in education, one of the greatest challenges is to stay focused on something. The goddamn textbook, I'm sorry. The wonderful textbook that is written for an average intelligence. It's a common prescription. It's not written for the brilliant student. It is written in a way that it's a common prescription, everybody gets it. But that textbook, how much effort it is taking for a whole lot of people? How they have to read it 10 times to get it? But you lie down in your bed and read a love story, you remember every word, huh? Yes or no? How come? So you don't lack memory, you don't lack focus. It is just that textbook and you chemistry is not working. So what you need is a higher level of focus, a higher level of involvement. And another great enemy for a student is, because this textbook is such a tranquilizer, the moment you open it, go to cinema till 2 a.m. you're up, open the textbook at 9 o'clock, right there, you smash into it. So sleep is another big enemy. So what kind of food do you eat so there is no inertia in the body? In yogic way of seeing things, we are looking at tamas, rajas and sattva. Tamas means inertia. Rajas means activity but no balance. Sattva means absolutely balanced kind of energy. When you're in education, you need a very balanced kind of energy because you have to focus on something which doesn't naturally interest you. It's not something with which your chemistry is gelling. If your chemistry is gelling, you are always focused on that one, isn't it? Here there's no chemistry, but you have to focus on that. For this you need a balance and a steady mind. For this you need to eat in a certain way. I will make this very simple, but if you want I can send you a full-fledged video where all of you can see. for maybe 45 minutes to an hour, what is food and how it works in your system, how it relates to your physiology, why food behaves the way it behaves, an entire system of it. But to put it very simply, food goes through your body through the alimentary canal. From your mouth to your anal outlet, there is a pipe. Through this it runs, going through various stages of digestive process. Many of you are biology people, right? So, it goes through the alimentary canal. Now it begins with the lip. Here, if you look at this, all the herbivores and carnivores, if you look at the animal kingdom, there are herbivores and carnivores are two main segments of animals in the world. One eats vegetable matter, another eats meat. If you look at the alimentary canal, the way it is built, between herbivores and carnivores, there's a distinct difference. Everything in the human being suggests that you are naturally a herbivore, but for the sake of survival, we became carnivores. If you look at the jaw movement, all the carnivorous animals have only cutting action. Herbivores have cutting and grinding action. There are molars, but carnivores don't have widespread molars, they have just incisors, canines, and everything looks like cutting teeth. So they do only this. All the herbivores do grinding. What do you have? Both. So you are supposed to chew your food. Why you are supposed to chew your food is you have enzymes in your saliva where if you take a little bit of raw rice and put it in your mouth just for a minute, you will see it turn sweet right here, because right here carbohydrate is being converted into sugar, right here. So if you eat properly, then we say about 30 to 50% of your digestion should happen in your mouth. So this part of the digestive system is expecting half-digested food or partially digested food. But right now the way we're eating is mostly we're putting not only undigested food, but partially destroyed food. So the amount of food that you need to get the same amount of energy has increased. You are eating much more food than what you should eat to generate that much of energy. Because of that, there is inertia in the body, because it has to process so much more food than what it should, there is inertia. Once there is inertia, your sleep quota increases. How many hours do you sleep on? Hello? 8 hours. You're going by the prescription, See, this is not that you must deny yourself sleep, that's not the point. But if you eat right and do a certain things with your body, you see very effortlessly, within 3 to 4 weeks, you can drop your sleep quota anywhere between 2 to 3 hours.
Odd that he points out those numbers, because I've heard of excuse me, I've heard of someone talking about maybe getting to 2 to 3 hours of sleep a day. I thought that was kind of crazy. I thought it was pretty interesting, but crazy. But now we have Sadhguru here talking about that thing too. And this is something I've seen a long time ago, so it's been a while since I've seen that. And I've not seen any recommendation of that in a long time. I don't remember what it's called or anything. I just remember them saying, like, maybe even some people said 30 minutes, I'm not sure. Like maybe to split it up, I can't remember. It's been a while, but I remember them saying something like very short hours of sleep. It's like, man, I can get more done in a day.
1.5 to 3 hours very easily you can drop if you just eat consciously and just learn to sit properly, just the posture, your geometry of the body and what goes into the system. If you just manage these two things, you will see sleep quota will just come down like that. Just to tell you, for over 25 years, I have largely managed with an average of 2.5 hours of sleep. Now I'm getting lazy and I'm sleeping, averaging somewhere around 4.5 hours now, but 7 days of the week, okay? 365 days, non-stop, on, almost every day. My daughter didn't call me for a month. I asked, what the hell is the problem with you? Why are you not calling? She said, every 6 hours you're in a new city, what the hell I'm supposed to do? I said, okay, which is true. In one day, sometimes we're doing 3 cities. So, it's a non-stop activity. And today, many people around me have learned to do this.
I said that's pretty interesting. I mean, that seems very viable considering that Sadhguru seems to have a very busy schedule, especially with the Save the Soil that he did, where he's constantly on that bike trying to get to destinations quickly with traffic and weather and all that.
Over 100, 150 people around me are doing this kind of activity, averaging 4 hours sleep, and 7 days of the week they're on, all the time. And they are not irritated, they are not frustrated, they're joyful and they're wonderful. Why this is this? There are many aspects to this, but one important aspect is food, how you eat. Not only what you eat, how you eat is also very important, because food is a live thing. One simple thing all you girls can do is just see various health issues and inertia issue, focus issue. Just bring 40 to 50% of the food in its raw form, that means it's alive. It must be a live cell, it can be a vegetable, it can be a fruit, it can be a nut, it can be sprouted gram. At least 40 to 50%, the food that you eat must be alive. You eat dead food and you want to live, this is a little difficult thing to do, because you have to raise the dead now. But if you eat live food, one thing you will see is the state of your mind, your focus and your sleep quotas, and above all, staying awake is not good enough, you have to stay alert, isn't it? How alert you are, how focused you are, only to that extent everything yields to you in this world, isn't it so? What is the level of focus will determine whether the world yields to you or not, isn't it? And one more aspect of life, one more aspect of food is, when you consume something, it must be of a simple genetic code, in the sense, it must be a very simple software. Vegetables, fruits, nuts, sprouts, they're very simple. More complicated means animal food becomes more and more complicated. Suppose you eat an animal which has some amount of emotion and a life of its own. Now the code in that… we were talking about this, your body is just an accumulation of memory, which means a certain software, isn't it? This is the most complex software. Human software is the most complex software on the planet of all the creatures. From an amoeba to this is the most complex… I'm not talking about her. She's looking… yes, yes. This is the most… this is safe. This is the most complex software. So if you eat an animal, particularly a mammal, if you eat, it has a similar kind of complexity, maybe not as complex as this, similar level of complexity, because it has thought and emotion of its own. Now for you to break that code and integrate it into your system, you are not fully successful, so it will leave traces of certain qualities within you. Otherwise, the best food would be eat human flesh, because it's same. But you cannot break that. You cannot break that code and make it a part of yours, because it's a different and complex code. If you eat a leaf, a vegetable, a fruit, a nut or a sprout, this is much simpler. If you must eat non-vegetarian food, you must eat that which is furthest away from you. So generally, fish and water life is furthest away from you. So if you must eat non-vegetarian food, the best thing to eat is you're on the coast. Fish is the best thing to eat that way.
That's very interesting too. Again, I've had some people that are vegetarians, but the weirdest thing is that there's vegetarians that says that you can eat meat, but it's only fish. And I'm like, then you're not vegetarian. But I guess there's a certain case of vegetarian that eats fish. Only meat they can eat is fish. Again, very interesting that Sadhguru talks about that. That's very fascinating. Huh. Fish is super expensive though. I want to try. I want to start eating fish, but they're so expensive. Anyways, I'm actually going to pause the video right here. So again, very interesting. Two things. I think two things he came up with that I've experienced in the past, whether it be through a YouTube video or through people I know, that he brought up here that I've heard a long time ago that are one, I didn't believe in the 3 hours of sleep that the person's having, but now Sadhguru's talking about it. And then the vegetarians, but the only meat they eat is fish. Again, Sadhguru talking about that. It's like, that's kind of strange. I wouldn't consider yourself a vegetarian if you eat meat, but again, like they've said that there's this kind of vegetarian, but fish meat only. I am so curious about that as to why fish, if any kind of meat, fish. And I know Sadhguru just said that it's the furthest away from you, but what's the next furthest? Yes, anyways. That's the end of this video, I guess. Hopefully, the last 30 minutes I don't talk so much so it doesn't last an hour. Anyways, if you like my content, please consider subscribing, thumbs up, thumbs down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next vid.